Hello everybody and welcome back to another one of those videos where I talk about updates on the Steam version of Dwarf Fortress coming from Toady1 and Kit Fox. It's been a mighty quiet month, but Tarn just popped up on the Bay 12 blog on a Saturday of all days and dropped a very large number of screenshots as well as some GIFs. So this is a whole lot of information. There's also a lot to read. I will be interspersing the images with my reading, but I will just talk about all the images at the end. So if you wanted to skip the part where I read the stuff, click to here. You still with us? Let's dive in. Yeah, well, I guess the late log's less of a surprise this time since I mentioned the new state of mind last month. Things are going very well. Let me refresh my memory as to what has occurred this month. All of the art, except a few buildings and 7 creatures, are in. So much good stuff. All of the audio is in, including a 7-minute title track. A special alert pops up for most important messages to make them harder to miss, including a new no food warning. Mouse wheel now works on scroll bars, and we got music and ambiances to stream off disc. The amount of audio has grown so amazing that it was taking up more than a gig in memory. Now it's much smaller. We reworked the tutorial a few times. The dwarven underwear situation versus Siege's goblin and thong rot has stabilized, split up the volume sliders, and fixed some bits where tiles tore through the interface. Sitefinder can now search and send specific metals. Jeweler jobs are no longer weird, and there are generic jobs, and you can specify materials in details. Multiple leather items, tanned based on skin size, rearranged the buttons on the main screen, made sub-tabs look different. Bin and storage jobs no longer stop other jobs from using the bin, and they don't try to haul items to bins that aren't in the right stockpile. I might also have mentioned at some point that mouse wheel zoning was out, but now it's back, using the control plus mouse wheel, or the brackets, or 2 buttons near the minimap. And a ton of bugs were created and destroyed, of course, as is the natural order of things. Here's a closer look at the current UI, showing the new button positions, the hotkeys for building a still, and the nice expanding nature of the building placement UI, and a 150% zoomed play area. And here's Jacob's Windmills, also did the water wheels and screw pumps and many other buildings. Carolyn recently expanded the Dwarven hair and image catalog by 2 times, added bones made of unit status bubbles, and more. And can you identify Carolyn's underground critters? How about these real-world fish made by Neo Rice is Good? Neo Rice is Good also did many other critters. Now that we're through with all of the reading bits, it's time to dive into the screenshots. So we're going to be rolling through the new hotkeys as well as the different submenus, which have changed quite dramatically from the way the game worked previously, and you'll see what I mean when we get in. So these first screen that we have here, we have a highlighted build screen with the hotkey listed, which is going to expand and align with the current open menu that is being operated. And you'll see what I mean in a moment. So this first screenshot, we have the hotkey B, which is set for the build screen, and it says, place structures and work areas that require construction materials. Now, in a moment down here, you'll see, when we move on to the next screenshot right now, we can now see all of the different options that we have here. So we have workshops, furniture, doors and hatches, walls and floors, and machines and fluids, as well as cages, restraints, traps, military, and trade depot, which, as you'll see, is significantly different than in the previous game. I'm going to do a little kind of side-by-side video in the coming days. But here, right now, just having a look at this, you can see right away, if you've played the previous game, that this is a much more condensed version of what you would get when you open up the build screen previously. Now, the hotkey that is selected is O, which I'm assuming is going to take us into the workshops, which would make a great deal of sense because of the thing that's going to be open next. Now, because it says workshops, and you'll notice that all of these are kind of a turquoise color, and the trade depot is white. So the trade depot is just a building, and I would assume that the turquoise color means it's a submenu. Are we following? Cool. So because previously workshops was W on the hotkey, because the way the hotkeys work now, WASD is required for camera movement, it makes a lot of sense that O would be for workshops instead of W. Now, let's move on to the next screen. Now, of course, hitting O, I'm assuming, is what opens up this workshops screen. So as you can see here, workshops is now highlighted on the left, and we have this little kind of nifty submenu with a whole bunch of different workshops in it. So clothing and leather, I'm assuming, is going to be like the clother's shop and the leatherworker's shop. Farming, I'm assuming, is what you're going to see next. Actually, is going to include all of your farming related and animal related activities. And then furnaces, I think, is a little odd because I would expect like the ashery or the metalsmith to be there, but I guess it's specifically just like the glass furnace, the kiln, and the smelter, etc. And then, of course, we have the ashery, the bowyer, the carpenter, and the crafts and jeweler, etc. What I'm going to do with this, actually, is I'm going to do like a side-by-side video in the next couple of days. I will produce that video tomorrow because it is kind of late tonight, but I'm going to do a video kind of going into detail of how much this does differ from the previous game's UI. Then, once we get the final tab open, you can actually see the farm plot, still, butcher, tanner, fishery, kitchen, farmer, corn, vermin catcher shop. I think that's new, unless I've just missed it before. The nest box and hives, of course, for making beehives. So now, as you can see, the hotkey selected is L, which is the normal hotkey for a still, which is what we're going to see next. But before I zoom into that a little bit, I just kind of want to highlight all of this. I actually really like the way this menu looks and the way it works, and I think it's very logical. Of course, like the hotkeys need a shift, and maybe we'll get a .dat file at some point, which will give us the old hotkeys back. But with the necessity for WASD, and of course, as we know now that E and C, if I'm not mistaken, are the default up and down levels for moving up and down Z levels, it makes sense why all of these keys are a little bit further over to the right on the keyboard. I think that it should be quite playable, especially if we do in fact get an on-screen cursor, which Tarn has talked about doing in previous Future of the Fortress posts. So as an old school player, this warms my heart that like the game is going to be playable in a format that, if not different, is still perfectly adequate for what I'm used to as a keyboard player. Tarn does also mention throughout these screenshots that they're at 150% zoom, meaning I'm assuming we'll be able to zoom out. But then we get to see this last piece of new UI, and this one's actually really cool. So this is click tile to place the still, of course, which is currently that thing floating over the great ancient lovely creature known as the wagon, with the little dwarves and animals crowded around it. So you can place this still, and then there are two options here. The top one is currently selected, but there's also a bottom one, and the top one says select the material after placement. So I'm assuming this will pop up a similar version of the old menu where you get like kind of a drop down of all of the different materials and the distance to them, or use closest material. Both of these are fantastic little options, and the bottom one is brand new. So using the closest material, theoretically you could just like click through, but it never presented a option box like this. It's just a new way of interacting with the game in a way that we could have previously by simply just hitting the button really quickly, but it's nice to be able to see it kind of spaced out and get its own UI piece. Next up, we have Jacob's, aka Iron Hands Windmills, getting constructed by a bunch of dwarves at what appears to be like 250% speed. Note there is a dead dwarf over there on the left. That seems rather unfortunate. I assume that's a dead dwarf, unless it's a really weirdly balanced statue. But no, there's definitely a dead dwarf over there on the left, which, like, as Dwarf Fortress prior, is mildly disturbing. But taking your attention back to these glorious windmills, I think that they actually look quite beautiful. And when I was initially watching this GIF, I was going, man, I wish that they could rotate. And then I saw the next one where it's very clearly rotating based on wind direction, which is fantastic, and I absolutely love this. Dead dwarf aside, I think that these windmills actually look kind of beautiful, especially compared to the old counterparts from ages ago that were previously drawn in earlier mock-ups that just kind of had a flat kind of ugly, not great look to them. These have a lot of depth and I think really, really fit kind of the angle and the visual flair of the game. So I'm very curious to see what things like Featherwood and, you know, kind of the underground mushroom colors look like, how bright and vibrant they can be, because Dwarf Fortress is a very colorful game, and even that shows through in the ASCII. Speaking of colors, we also have these two final critters. So first off, we have Carolyn's additions to the Underground Dwarf Fortress critters, and because Tarn did this in the read-along, I think I'm going to do this as well. I'm going to challenge you guys. Name all these creatures from, you know, top left to bottom right, and maybe I'll feature some of the comments, especially if you have some funny stories about meeting any of these creatures in the next video, because I am working on a comparison video, so might as well have something kind of fun to tag onto the end. So if that's something that, if you've played this game before and you look at these and you go, yeah, I know what these are, or if you've never played the game before and you just want to try and name them, that also works too. I'm just curious as to what you guys come up with. Finally, we have a set of real-world fish by Neo Rice's Good, and I think that these are beautiful and colorful and wonderful, and they look so nice. Even like zoomed out at the size that they probably will be most of the time in the game. I just love the details and the pixel art, and it actually makes me want to play this on a CRT or something, because like this game just, I don't know, it has that kind of like NES almost flair to it, and man, looks so nice. I can't wait to see this whole game in motion. Things feel like they're so close now, and I'm getting abnormally excited even for my normal kind of quiet personality. Although, you guys know me as this kind of excited guy on the internet, so who knows. But, you know, if you want to watch more of me as this excited guy on the internet, you can do that down at my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/BLINDIRL. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays, I stream a lot of Dwarf Fortress there, although keep in mind it is quite ASCII when I play it. Lastly, if you want to support this channel, you can do that directly via Patreon or via Super Thanks, or of course joining my YouTube members. It's only $2 a month, and it does actually get you into the credits of these videos, along with my patrons at $2 and up. Thank you very much for watching this video, and I hope to see you in the next one.